For centuries, Judas Iscariot has stood as the ultimate symbol of betrayal. His very name became shorthand for treachery, and in Christian memory he is the disciple who sold out Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Yet the closer one looks at the biblical record and the long history of interpretation, the more complicated Judas becomes. He was not an outsider or a random enemy. According to the canonical Gospels, he was one of the 12, part of Jesus' inner circle, and deeply woven into the events that shaped Christianity itself. The traditional case against Judas is strong. In Matthew's account, Judas goes to the chief priests and asks what they will give him if he hands Jesus over, and they pay him 30 pieces of silver. The Gospels also describe him identifying Jesus with a kiss, turning a gesture of intimacy into one of history's most haunting symbols of betrayal. From that perspective, Judas looks exactly like the villain tradition remembers, a man who exchanged loyalty for money and delivered his teacher to death. But the story does not stay that simple for long. The same New Testament tradition that condemns Judas also leaves room for tragedy, remorse, and mystery. Matthew says Judas was seized with remorse after Jesus was condemned, returned the silver, confessed that he had betrayed innocent blood, and then died by hanging. Acts preserves a different account of his death, suggesting early Christians themselves were passing down more than one memory of his final end. Judas is not presented merely as a cartoon villain. Even in condemnation, he appears as a ruined and conflicted man. Another complication is motive. Was Judas driven by greed alone? Some passages suggest material self-interest, but others frame the betrayal in darker spiritual terms. Luke says Satan entered Judas, and John uses similar language during the Last Supper. That does not erase Judas' responsibility, but it does widen the lens. In these accounts, his betrayal is not only a moral failure, it is also part of a cosmic struggle between human weakness and evil influence. The biblical portrait, therefore, resists a one-dimensional reading. Judas is guilty, but the texts also portray him as spiritually compromised and entangled in forces larger than himself. Modern readers often ask a disturbing but unavoidable question. If Jesus' arrest and crucifixion were central to the Christian story of salvation, did Judas in some sense help bring that story to fulfillment? That line of thinking does not make Judas innocent, but it explains why his character continues to provoke debate. The linked article raises that same tension. Without Judas' betrayal, Christianity would not look the way it does today. The paradox is sharp. Judas commits the act that tradition condemns most severely, yet that same act becomes one of the turning points in the story Christians believe led to resurrection and redemption. That question became even more controversial with the rediscovery of the Gospel of Judas, a non-canonical text known in antiquity and published in translation in 2006 after the restoration of a Coptic manuscript. Unlike the canonical Gospels, this text portrays Judas less as a simple traitor and more as someone acting within a hidden divine plan. Mainstream Christianity does not treat the Gospel of Judas as scripture, and its late Gnostic perspective places it outside the New Testament tradition. Even so, its existence proves that ancient people were already wrestling with whether Judas should be seen only as a villain or as a more mysterious figure. So was Judas evil, misunderstood, or both? The most balanced answer is that he was neither a hero nor a flat stereotype. In the earliest Christian sources, Judas is responsible for betraying Jesus, and that judgment remains central. But those same sources also show a man close to Jesus, capable of remorse, caught up in prophecy, temptation, fear, and consequences he may not have fully understood. He is condemned, yes, but he is also tragic. That is why Judas still unsettles readers 2,000 years later. Villains are easy to dismiss. Tragic figures are harder to forget. Judas remains disturbing precisely because his story sits at the intersection of freedom, guilt, destiny, and mercy. He may never be rehabilitated in the eyes of tradition, but neither can he be reduced to a single word. Judas endures as one of the Bible's most unsettling reminders that the darkest acts in history are often carried out not by monsters, but by painfully human people.